All right, I'm just gonna, because I don't remember, I guess this is part of nursing school. I have to share this story with. This is the craziest class I had. Someone left me a comment. What was nursing school like? Oh my God, I just love nursing school. It was the best time in my entire life. I miss it. So it's been 5 years. I miss it so much. There's nothing like waking up at like 5 a.m. in the morning preparing for a clinical so you can smell other people's bodily fluids. Oh, it was amazing. Yeah, I hated. I absolutely hated nursing school. I really hated nursing school. So I did the accelerated program. It was 15 months, about a 15-month long program. We started in the summer and then we ended in the fall, I think is the way it worked. And I'd been out of school for a long time. Did my prereqs, then applied for the accelerated program, got in, and it was just like, boom. My first degree was in philosophy, lots of reading. I used to read probably 2 to 4 hours a night. No joke, as a philosophy major. I loved it. I miss it. And then you just hammer out these papers. So I'm pretty quick at typing, pretty quick at hammering out a philosophical paper and then getting an A on the paper and then just being done. Nursing school is completely different. It's science. You're talking about BA versus BSN. So science versus arts. I mean, it's studying, memorization, rote memorization, and then regurgitation for the test, especially with the accelerated program, because it's 15 months, everything is condensed. Everything is condensed. So that was super frustrating because I'm someone who really likes to get the nitty gritty when I'm studying. I really like to get into the details, do my own research, cross-reference everything. And with the accelerated program, man, you just didn't have time for that. You really just have to study for the test. Study for the test. So and I forget how the phrase goes. It's like learn and dump something and dump. You just learn it and then you dump it. Then you learn something else and then you dump it. Learn something else and dump it. And so if I could go back and take all my accelerated exams, I don't think I'd pass one of them. Maybe I could pass the psych one. I would hope I could pass the psych one. Yeah, I could probably pass the psych one because I remember doing our psych rotation and they would talk about meds, and I was like, I have no idea what these meds are. Now I'd hear them, I'd be like, okay, I recognize all those meds. But yeah, overall, nursing school just flat out sucked. And it would have been a lot better if the pace was slower, but I just wanted to get it done and over with. So let me tell you about pharmacology, which is probably one of the worst courses. I'd say pharmacology and med surg, for me, were the hardest courses, hands down. Pharmacology, and I love pharmacology. Pharmacology I thought was super interesting. Med surg, it was like, hit or miss for me. Med surg, it tried to cover too much in a short amount of time. You just didn't really feel like you understood anything. And so that personally frustrated me, and I think that's why I didn't really like med surg, especially med surg 2, my God. We had some great professors. I had some great professors, but yeah, so pharmacology though, I think I was going to talk about pharmacology. So pharmacology, the first test I took, I think it was, I don't remember what the meds were, but I got a B on the test. I'm like, I'm cool with that. You have to have a B average to pass. I'm like, whatever. I'm not trying to be a star student here. B is fine for me. Then I took the cardiac med test and oh my fucking God, I got a straight D on that test. And like, okay, I studied for it, not like super hard, but I studied for it. And then I got into the exam and I was like, what? I have no freaking clue. See, after that, I was kind of panicky because you have to have that B average. So I'm like, dude, I need to get an A on my next exam, which was antibiotics. I think it went whatever this was, then it was cardiology, then it was antibiotics / antifungals, I think. And so let me tell you about this, because this is what is mind-boggling to me. I have never ever, and I swear to God, like for antibiotics, I came home, I was like, bro, you need to get scheduled, stop fucking around. I don't even think I was fucking around, but I was like, you need to get scheduled. So I'd get off. When I was done with my pharmacology, I would immediately go home and I would study the stuff we covered in class, and I would make flashcards from her PDF. We had a very rigorous teacher, by the way. She was nuts. This lady was nuts. I loved her. She was very knowledgeable. She had like a doctorate in nursing. Very knowledgeable lady. But she had these ridiculous expectations for us accelerated students. Then I hear that the traditional students, oh yeah, they get all these other resources. Like, it was weird. Why would you make it harder for the accelerated student? We already have a cram time, right? So our expectations were higher. We were much more mature than traditional nursing students. Probably average age was like 30. A lot of us had a few careers, whatever. But anyhow, the expectations were higher in the accelerated program, which makes no sense to me whatsoever. It should just be shared expectations. Why would you make expectations harder for your accelerated peeps? I have no idea. And like traditional students, they could use resources during the test. Must have been nice. But anyhow, what I was saying is, so I'd get off from her lecture. I'd go back, and anybody use Anki flashcards out there? They're amazing. They're electronic. They do the spaced repetition thing. I'd go and I'd make my flashcards. I kid you not. I think it was close to like 800 flashcards for my next antibiotic exam. Like, I studied that stuff so hardcore. I could tell you, and I don't even remember it now. Like, I don't remember anything about antibiotics. I really don't, except that you take them on a scheduled basis and it's like short term, generally speaking. That's pretty much it. I couldn't tell you what this antibiotic does, what this class of antibiotic does, which is horrible considering the amount of time I spent studying. So I calculated every week. I spent 20 hours studying for my next pharmacology exam. And guess what? When I took the exam, guess what happened? I failed it. No, I'm messing with you. I did really well. I got like a 93%, but for how much I studied, like I expected to get 100% on the test. No one else in the class studied as hard as I did. I guarantee it. I don't think I got the highest exam. Not that it's a competition. I'm just saying it was crazy. And then I remember there was one question. I'm like, no, this question's wrong because I made a flashcard specifically for this specific kind of question. It was some antifungal and side effects about an antifungal. And I think it messed up the kidneys. I don't know. I just remember the question was wrong. Told my professor. And then she was like, yeah, that question, I guess, is wrong. But anyhow, silly. Like, why should it be that hard? It shouldn't be that hard. When you're out in the nursing field, you have all these. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I use Google on the job. If I don't know something, I Google, I look it up, I research it well, and boom, I'm fine. Man, you guys can tell I'm ranting here. This is a testimony to how much I hate nursing school, by the way. And then not only that, I don't feel like textbooks suck. Textbooks are just, they're so horrible. They still have like nursing textbooks out there. Everything's dated. The references are horrible. None of it makes sense. You go and you get all this contradictory information online. So most of my education was on YouTube. And you'll find when you go through nursing school, you will find people that you just love on YouTube who do a great job. Just keep following them. Listen to their advice. That's the way to do it. And even when it comes to understanding physiology, my God, YouTube is just amazing. You'll go to your lecture and you're like, this lecture is horrible. None of this makes sense. Then you'll find YouTube and you're like, okay, finally I understand the physiology behind kidney disease. Or you want to understand, I remember one that was kind of hard was, I think it's like acid base balancing or something. I just remember you kind of have two columns, and after the lecture, it made no sense. Then I go onto YouTube. I watched this gal. She was an NP, and she explained it. I'm like, oh, okay, you understand it. Some of my professors were just, oh, God, they should not have been teaching. Lovely people, wonderful people, but as far as instructing, just not there. So that was a frustrating part for me with nursing school, especially considering how expensive nursing school was. I just realized I'm like totally ranting here, and I'm not even addressing nursing school itself. Made a lot of really cool friends in the accelerated program, just fascinating people from all different sects of life. So we had one guy that was had a PhD in biochemistry. So we had a doctor in our nursing class. Like, that's how crazy our accelerated program was. And at this point, 5 years later, it's kind of a blur, to be honest. Some of my preceptors were amazing. I mean, I had one cardiac preceptor and then one med surg preceptor. My God, these people were just, and you can tell, when you get out there and you start meeting a lot of different nurses and asking a lot of different questions, you can tell the nurses who do their homework and really care about what they do. And you can tell the nurses who are just like show up, they do their job and they just go home. I'm not saying there's anything really bad with the latter, but you can tell the nurses that truly understand the physiology and what they're doing behind their work. And there's other nurses who are just like, I pretty much just follow the doctor's orders and just hope they know what they're doing. And I guess that was another crazy part of nursing school for me, is sometimes I almost felt like we're getting too detailed. Like, I'm never going to remember this crap. Like I said, I go back, I would fail every exam right now. I'd fail. I could still go back and pass the NCLEX. And the NCLEX to me was a joke. I finished in 75 questions. Like, I zipped through that crap, and it compared to nursing school, for me at least, the NCLEX was an absolute joke. And I remember studying after nursing school, and I was like, all right, maybe I'll make a separate video about that. Trying to think like what else I should talk about with nursing school. Halfway through my semester, I started showing up less to my classes just because I felt like I was getting more from YouTube. So instead of being in class, I would just take their lecture that was on whatever that is, PowerPoint, and then I would just go through the lecture, read it really well, and then cross-reference with YouTube. What else was nursing school like, bro? Another part of nursing school that was sort of frustrating for me is when you go to your clinicals, like our med surg clinicals. Sometimes I'd get an amazing nurse. They'd want to show me anything and everything. And then other times you'd get the worst nurse ever. Just the worst. Like, you could tell she didn't want a person shadowing her. And I'm kind of like, if you don't want me shadowing you, that's fine. Let's make arrangements. But I almost felt like she had to shadow or something. I don't know if it's part of her job or whatever, but there were just some nurses who you could tell they didn't want to be shadowed. They didn't want to be asked questions. They just wanted to get there, do their job, and I totally understand. Like, I've been there on days not when I've had nursing students. I always feel like I'm good with nursing students, like in psych, but like there's some days when you're just like, man, I'm glad I don't have anybody else and I can just get to work and do my job and go home. But these nurses, I mean, even like their bedside manner was just, you could tell they were jaded. So that part sucks because it's like you want to get out of the way, but at the same time you're required to shadow them, so you like don't really know what to do. So in that case, what I started doing is I would just find patients that I had good rapport with when we're going in and out, and I'm just like, hey, I'm just gonna go shoot the shit with this patient. They were always cool because I'm getting away from them, and then I'm just going talking to the patient, and maybe I'm like reviewing their meds with them, whatever. I'm trying to learn with the experience, and I'm just asking open-ended therapeutic questions in the whole process. So that was cool. Like that is how I got through med surg. A lot of times when I had a crappy nurse to shadow, is I would just go and I would chill with the patients. But I'm kind of weird like that, and I like people, and I like asking questions, and I like getting to know people. So I guess it just kind of goes with my personality. It's way too early in the morning. I gotta get this video done before my kid wakes up. All right, I'm just gonna, because I don't remember. I guess this is part of nursing school. I have to share this story with. This is the craziest class I had. This class was, I can't even remember the name of it. It was our legal class. So we had to buy all these updated nursing, whatever, Dora-like books with ethics and all this other crap in it, right? These were like expensive books, and oh God, it just floored the living F out of me. And they all had these tenets in them. Like there was one, I don't even remember what the books are, but it had like 20 tenets, and each tenet was maybe a few sentences long. We had this teacher. She was actually very knowledgeable when it came to legal stuff. She was also crazy. She was absolutely crazy. Like people just could not stand her. This gal made us memorize word for word all of these tenets, and I kid you not. And some people, like old school Nick, I would have been like, fuck this shit. This shit's ridiculous. I would have gone to the dean, but I was like, bro, I'm older now. Just stop bitching, get through nursing school. It's all going to be a distant memory when you're done. So that's what I did. I memorized all of these tenets with flashcards, Anki flashcards, spaced repetition. Can you imagine? And then we had to write them down. I like at that point, I think that was maybe our third, or that was like very close to getting to our last semester. So I'm like, bro, I'm not going to botch it. I'm this far through. Just shut up, eat shit, bark at the moon, get done. And that's what I did. I guarantee you though, most of you, if you had to take this class, you would be floored and flabbergasted. You would be like, what? Why is she doing this to us? And the funny thing is like, you know, she was on a power trip. All right, I'm going to tell you, this is a funny story, okay? Because I use Photoshop, right, to upload and do my own YouTube thumbnails. I'd say I'm like probably amateur when it comes to Photoshop, but I can do some photo manipulation that looks decent. So I didn't want to buy these books. I was like, I can just buy one that's like a year or two old. It's going to have the same stupid tenets in it. So that's what I did. I always buy used books. Well, this lady wanted us to have the current editions. She wanted to see that we had the current editions. So we had to take a picture of the receipt and send it to her, and then take a picture of the books and send it to her. So the receipt thing was easy, but then the book thing, I was like, bro, what am I going to do? My books are like 2 years old. So I took a picture of them, and then I found some pictures online of the recent books, and I photoshopped that shit, and I got all the lighting right. It looked great. I showed it to my friends. I'm like, yo, this is what I'm gonna do. Tell me, can you tell a difference between? They're like, no, that looks really good. So that's what I did. And then of course, she got suspicious, and she made us bring them to class. And I'm like, lady, I can't Photoshop that shit. I photoshopped that image. What am I supposed to? So eventually I had to buy them. And then I even you had to take the stupid wrapping off. I was so pissed off. God, some people are silly. And the funny thing is, like, this lady had she really had a ton to teach. And I actually learned a lot by being in her class. But this whole power trip thing of her, this ego thing that she had, it just drove me insane. So I guess, I don't feel like I'm specifically addressing in this video how nursing school was, but through these sort of stories, you get kind of what the undertone was, for me at least. My most interesting rotation was Psych. I'm gonna tell you guys some funny stories, because I'm a weird mofo. Like, I like to joke a lot. I like to be playful. At the same time, I can be very serious if needed. But I think sometimes my what I perceive as humor kind of rubs people the wrong way. So we had the Psych teacher, very, very knowledgeable. This lady was incredibly knowledgeable. And I also feel like for working in Psych, you got to have a little fluidity of your affect. And she was just always kind of like, well, you need to be very calm and always have a poker face. In my experience, that's not the case. The realer you are with Psych patients, the better you do. I'd love to just interview her, and this lady, like, I feel like she hated me, but she also kind of loved me. So somehow we were talking about Psych meds and contraception. And so there was like 4 or 5 of us around this table. We're sitting in the library of the state hospital. It's very like dark, gloomy, old school. Just think of like 1980s library, right? Even that kind of funny book smell is in there, And the lights are kind of dim, and we're sitting around this table. table, and she's sitting right to the right of me. And she's like, so let's talk about contraception. What are the 3 main forms of contraception? One of my buddies was like, something like, the birth control pill. Another person said condom. And then there was this pause, and then I said pulling out. And she looked at me with the most stern kind of reprimanding face. And she was like, Nick, try to be professional. And I'm like, I think I was the only one laughing, and everyone else around. Like, one of my best buddies was in this class, and I could tell like everyone else wanted to laugh, but they're like, we're not going to do it with her. Oh God, it was just, that shit was a hoot. And this is the same gal, like on their very last day, went out, we were done with everything. We go out to get drinks. She would not let us drink alcohol. She was like, you guys are on the clock. It's against policy. Like, very by the book, right? At the same time, I learned a lot from her. My therapeutic communication for this gal, she would make us transcribe a conversation we had with a patient. Like, we're supposed to remember all that shit, right? And then she'd go through, and then she would kind of ask us, why did you ask this question? What could have you said differently? And it was helpful, because there were some times when I was like, well, I wasn't entirely sure where to go with my therapeutic communication, and she would help. I mean, the gal was amazing. It's just like our personalities. There was definitely a personality conflict between us. So my psych rotation, though, I absolutely love. It was a dual diagnosis, so they had to be diagnosed with a mental illness, and they had to have substance abuse. And these were very high functioning, for the most part, very high functioning, kind of charismatic people. I remember one guy in particular, just very charismatic. Like, I love the dude. I was like, but bro, the trajectory of your life, there's just this patternistic between him using, and then just, you could see it between the substance abuse and then the mental illness and just everything. And it's like, you wish the best for him, but as soon as he gets out of here, he's just gonna go back and repeat that same pattern. Then I met another gal, and I was trying to have a therapeutic conversation with her, and so we're talking, and I'm asking about all this stuff, and then she just starts having this panic attack, meltdown. She had bad experience with men, me obviously being a male, and talking to her. I mean, I felt like she trusted me, but I think she'd been raped multiple times. She started crying down. She's like, I just need a female to talk to. And I'm like, shit. So I just grabbed female staff, and they came and talked to her. But the weirdest thing in psych is just and I still, even after working as a psych nurse, you just see so many people who are hands off. Like, they just want to chill in the nurse's station and never interact with patients. And that to me was the weirdest thing. And you could say that about every rotation. I felt like, for the most part, was like that, except that at least in other rotations, the nurses generally had a good excuse. Like, they were charting, they were busy doing stuff. But in psych nursing, like, oh, you're there to kind of be with the patients and shoot the shit with them. And just so many people didn't. And that to me was very eye-opening. It's just like, they come here, they got these meds, and then there's not really any interaction, not much for them to do. So guys, where am I going with this video? I have no idea what I think of this video. I don't even know if I'm gonna put this video up. This is a weird video. What else do I have to say about and then I guess just in nursing school, I would ask a bunch of inappropriate questions because I'm weird. I mean, we had this one gal, bless her heart, she tolerated my personality very well, and she was just super knowledgeable. Like, one of those nurses, she was an RN, but she easily could have been an advanced practitioner nurse, an NP, whatever. And she's probably an NP by now. She taught our course, but I mean, she understood everything like so much, so well. She would read about it all the time. Just an amazing, amazing nurse. And I remember she was talking about how fecal impaction. And she was telling me how she had to manually remove someone's poo from their anus. And this is a big lecture hall, and being the dumbass that I am, I raised my hand and I asked her what the preferred digit was to use during. Yeah, I can't believe I asked that question. I'm such a weirdo. I am so freaking weird. That's why I work in psych. You got to be weird to work in psych. Psych nursing is where nurses go to die. I mean, if I had to work a med-surg unit, I would probably inadvertently kill someone. I am so bad with that kind of stuff. They could probably have like a pulmonary embolism right in front of me, and I would be like, you're a little short of breath. Just kidding. It wouldn't be that bad. Like, I feel like I know when I need to notify people, but as far as all that med-surg and physiology and all that, oh my Lord have mercy, I would not know what to do. The learning curve would be bad, is what I'm saying. I could still go back and pass that NCLEX though. What else? I'm trying to think if there's any other like fun nursing stories that I have for you guys that kind of sum up my nursing school experience. Okay, I do feel like our professors, I think we had all female professors, but I do feel like being a male, I felt like there was a benefit to that. I don't know how to really articulate it, but I definitely feel like there was some benefit to being a male. Like we got maybe a little bit of preferential treatment just because sometimes I would talk to my female cohorts about stuff and I'd be like, yeah, that's never happened to me. And I don't think it's happened to any of the other males but I don't really know how to articulate it. It's just one of those things. It's like this intuitive hunch I kind of have. I couldn't really prove it, but I still believe it to be true. Oh, and then I will say your practicums. Oh, practicums are just obnoxious because you don't really feel like you get adequate practice for them. And I remember I really wanted to get good at IVs and I kind of felt nervous about them. I was like, I don't feel like it's fair for me to inject or for me to put a needle into someone else without having any experience doing it whatsoever. And they were just like, well, just tell them you've done it before. I'm like, no, that's kind of a lie. Yeah, I've stuck it in on mannequin skin. It's like, how do you feel? I mean, like, okay, one time I have a urethral restriction, right? It's going to last me probably till I die. So I'm supposed to catheterize myself monthly, straight cath, right? So when I was 19 to get this scoped, my urethra scoped, I had two guys in there, right? One guy's teaching the other dude. I'm like, bro, this is my penis. I would like to have someone who's experienced with this procedure. So they're just putting the little scope up my urethra with the little, what's the L word? Lidocaine on it. And so I'm like, hey, I understand this guy's got to learn. At the same time, I'd feel more comfortable having someone who's more experienced. I think that's what I said. And the guy's like, well, I could do it. I've only done it once myself. This is the guy who's teaching the other dude. I'm like, oh my God. Why am I telling you this story? There was somewhere I was going with this, I promise. Oh, right. So with the needles, like we would do the needles on a mannequin that had these fake veins. I mean, it was just horrible. Like nothing like the real experience whatsoever. Then you get to the hospital and you're like, okay, that person has no veins. That person has no veins. That person has no veins. I did get one successful IV. Of course, this dude was like a firefighter. His forearms were like my biceps. He had these bulging veins. And I was like, bro, do you mind? He's like, no. I was like, all right, I feel pretty cool about that. But anyhow, I didn't feel comfortable. My very first injection, I wasn't going to do on a human. I hadn't done it on anything but a mannequin. And so they were just like, yeah, just tell him you've done it before. I was like, bro, I haven't done it before. I've done it before. Hey, ma'am, you're about to get an IV by a nursing student. I've done it before on a mannequin. Like, I don't know. I just don't feel that convinced. So I went home, took some needles, and I have like really good veins. So I stuck myself a bunch of times and we stuck each other a few times. They said we couldn't do it. It's like a liability issue. That's the world we live in right now. We couldn't stick each other. I'm looking at my time. We couldn't stick each other because who knows for what liability. But you could go in and stick a patient because that makes sense. So yeah, we just totally broke that rule. We're like, you know what? We're mature, accelerated students. We can do this. We can stick each other because you want to feel comfortable, right? And yeah, and IVs hurt like hell. Like when I put the IV in my arm, it fucking hurt like hell. And then I had this, my amazing MedSurg 1 preceptor was showing me IVs and she's like, yeah, you just kind of move the needle around like this. And then I did it on myself. Oh my God, that shit hurts. Like, when you can't find the vein, but you're like close. So you kind of move it in. Oh my God, that stuff's painful. So yeah, I guess as far as the practicums go, I never felt prepared for practicums. And they're always like, practicums are kind of weird because the way you do the practicum and how you do something is not how you see it done in the field, like inserting catheters and then you watch a nurse insert a catheter and it's just not done that way. And a lot of times it's just not practical the way you're learning it. I mean, we had this one gal, she was probably 600 pounds, bedridden, and this nurse is trying to insert this catheter. It took 4 of us to hold her legs while she took a flashlight, tried to find the urethra. I mean, it was crazy. On your mannequin, the urethra is very easy to find. So it's just, yeah, I guess practicums were obnoxious. I could not stand practicums were, I think, one of the worst parts of nursing school. By the way, I think this video is coming off as kind of pessimistic. Like nursing school wasn't, I say it's horrible. All right, a lot of the stuff I'm using is kind of hyperbole. It wasn't like, it was bad sometimes, and we would just all tell ourselves like, look, it's an accelerated program. We're gonna be done in 6 more months, and that's kind of what got us through. It's like, it's just gonna be a remnant of your memory at that point. And that's what I tell everybody. Nursing school sucks. Traditionally, acceleratedly, whatever, it always sucks. But at the end of the day, like, you're going to get done. You're going to pass your NCLEX, and then you're not even going to care. And that's where I'm at. Like, I never think of nursing school anymore. I haven't thought of nursing school for a while until I read that dude's comment. I was like, all right, maybe I'll make one on what nursing school is like. So I'm at like close to 30 minutes. I know the video is not going to be 30 minutes long, but I feel like hopefully that gives you my take on nursing school. And I like how my camera shuts off after 30 minutes. It's amazing. It's an amazing feature.